Hey guys, I know it's been forever since I've been here. Just to give you a quick heads up, if you start hearing funny breathing or like little tiny feet running around, that's my dog. She's very much in the picture. She likes to just come over when we're doing something really important like exercise or trying to balance on one finger or trying to film. Hey B. She's so good. She's so good. Anyway, I just thought I would come on here really quickly just to check in with you guys, let you guys know that I'm still here, I'm around, and also just run through some books that I find quite interesting. Some of the books I'm going to show you toward the end are books that have helped with the writing process. Other books that are on my to be read pile. So books that I really, really want to read in the hopes that I will find even more gems and gold within their pages to help me improve my own writing, especially when it comes to grammar and stuff, which should help me a lot with writing in general. So they're kind of a broad spectrum of books. We're going to run through those ones first. And like I said, with the other set of books, those are books that I still use now, that I still find to be quite fundamental and quite important when it comes to writing and certain aspects of writing, especially novels and fictional work. So I'll be sharing those ones with you as well. So first things first, to be read pile. The first book on my to be read pile for writing tips and advice is The Art of Nonfiction. This one is by I don't know what you would call her because I've only kind of recently discovered her. She's a writer. Well, she was. I don't know if she's still alive. She was a writer. Ayn Rand. She deals with the world of like liberalism, politics, capitalism, and you name it. She was born and raised in Russia and then moved to America like in her youth, and where she ended up pursuing her career. I don't know a great deal about her. I know that she was I guess you could say like the founder of the field or theoretical study of objectivism, which is something, again, that I did touch on it when I was at uni, but we didn't really delve into it. So that's how I kind of knew of her, but I never really read any of her stuff. But my husband happens to have owned this book for a really long time, and it's a small book. It's nice. I've read a couple of the essays in here, and I'm very much a lover of nonfiction, especially essay collections. I do really love essay collections, and I like the idea of perhaps like dabbling in the world of like writing articles and doing sort of like journalism, but it's not something that I would ever do full-time or anything like that. It's just something that I like to do. So The Art of Nonfiction and why it's important to be able to write and read and understand nonfiction, I thought this would be quite an essential book, and it's also my starter into Ayn Rand herself. She's also the author of the book Atlas Shrugged, and that's a book that I've been dying to read for a while, but I didn't make the connection that it was by the same person. So that'll be interesting. So yeah, that's the first book on my to be read pile, which technically I'm still kind of reading. The next one is Woe Is I by Patricia T. O'Connor. This book tends to focus more on grammar. Grammar is something that I get a little bit fiddly with, because while I know British grammar, and I had to learn grammar as part of my elocution lessons and part of my language lessons before I started school and during my early school years, grammar is still something that tends to trip me up even now. So in order to be able to feel confident about the work that I'm writing, I like to double check my grammar as I go through the editing process, just to make sure that everything still flows. And if it doesn't sound right, it then sort of panics me for a bit, and I'm just kind of stuck in my head to try and figure out how I can sort of reword sentences and make sure that the syntax and the grammar actually work together in such a way that I'm able to win a reader over. But this should hopefully get me back in check. I do like books on grammar. They're a lot of fun. So that book is Woe Is I. The next book is Dan Poynter's The Self-Publishing Manual. Now, I've seen this floating around like all over Twitter, on Instagram, you name it. So this is a book that basically just goes through a lot of details about how you can be a self-publisher, how you can market your works. It's basically, like the title says, it's a self-publishing manual. As someone who's already self-published 2 books already, a book of poetry and a collection of essays, I'm now working on the idea of publishing novels after and if I happen to fail going traditionally with my work. I will want to be able to try and publish One with Witches eventually, the self-publishing way if the traditional route doesn't work. So this should, again, kick me up the butt and give me a lot more tips and advice to sort of keep learning and keep growing as a self-published author and a self-published writer. So hopefully there's a lot in here that I don't know as of yet. So, self-publishing manual. The next one is the TV Writer's Workbook, which is by Sandler. This book is really interesting. Again, this is also owned by my husband, like the previous book. It's interesting to me because I studied adaptations for 3 years while I was at university. It was one of the core modules for the whole degree, as part of the English literature degree. And adaptations for me is a very important subject because whilst it's easy to watch a movie or a TV show and then say, oh, it's not as good as the books, or oh my God, it's so much better than the books, I actually went deeper. I got into the critical theory around adaptations, why adaptations are important, how many forms of media that we're really into but we don't realise actually aren't adaptations, how you can retell things for the good and how you can retell things for the bad, and such and so forth. So this is really handy. I also studied TV production, so again, it's just the automatic idea for me, having spent a few years writing scripts just for my courses, not for like jobs or anything. Not yet. It just comes as like a natural thing for me as I'm writing my novels. I'm already picturing each scene literally as a TV scene or as a movie scene. And then sometimes if I have enough time, I'll then sit and spend like a few moments just sort of like writing out the scene and thinking about how I would adapt certain scenes and chapters for TV or for film. So yeah, that should be good to try and get me back into that sort of like creative thinking and that creative process again. So I'm looking forward to reading this one. The next book is On Writing Well. It's by William Zinsser, sorry. This is a book that I've started at least twice. I've read the first couple of like chapters in here, and every single time I get to like the end of the second one, I'm just like, no, I'm done. It's a mixture of both literary examples as well as essays. It's a fantastic book. Again, this is one of those books that's been around for quite a while, and revisions just keep coming out, new editions just keep coming out of the same book. It's one of those books that a lot of writers seem to talk about quite highly, and I'm just kind of lucky that I have a copy, but again, it's my husband, so I'm stealing it, so it's mine. But it's one of those books I really do need to get through it, but for some reason I just feel a little bit intimidated by the minimalist aspect of the front cover, but I don't know. It's just one of those books. So if you've already read any of those books, by all means, let me know what you thought of them. But I'm very excited to get into all of these books quite soon. Now we're going to move on to books that I have already read and books that I tend to reread quite often because they're easy to get through and because I absolutely love them for what they were. So first things first. Patricia T. Words Fail Me. So her other book is actually in the other pile in that previous section. But again, it's to do with grammar and how you can tighten up sentences. But this is one that my husband and I had actually started. We did get quite a way through this book. And it's just the way that she writes. It's just very approachable. It's easy to understand. She's not condescending in any way. It's just easy. And the book is actually a very quick read. It's just really fun and just to the point. So it's a really, really good book if you want a bit more brushing up on grammar and how you can make your work funny or a little bit more scary or a bit more emotional in parts. Using grammar effectively, this is definitely the book that you should check out. So it's fantastic. So Words Fail Me. The next book is Read This If You Want to Be a Great Writer by Raisin. I don't think I said his name right, but I'm just going to go with it. This book I found purely by chance in one of the UK bookstores known as Waterstones. I was in a branch over in Milton Keynes where I found this on a shelf full of writing stuff. And I didn't know a great deal about this book, again, at the time, but I read through it pretty quickly. What Ross has done in this particular book is he's given examples from loads and loads and loads of writers, like passages or a couple of paragraphs from works that they've done on one side, and then he's broken down how that writer has managed to write that sort of like effective sequence as an example so that you can learn from examples for your own writing. I'll give you a quick view. So this is an excerpt from Saul Bellow's book, Herzog. So this is from the actual book itself. And then the author of this particular collection has then broken down the importance of that scene and why that scene is so effective with its use of language and grammar and with, I guess, the flow of the story itself. So this is actually a really fantastic book. I actually got this one for half price. It was like part of a deal where if you bought certain books, you got like the third book half price because it was like going back to school season. So I was like, this will help quite a bit. So this is a really handy book as well. It's just a nice quick read. It's actually quite in-depth, but I don't know, I just don't like the cover. The cover kind of freaks me out a little bit, but otherwise it's a pretty good book. The next book is for more academic-minded people. This is John Frow's book of genre. This is actually published by Routledge. The amount of Routledge books I had to read while I was at university, which I still own a lot of those books, is kind of crazy, but I'm a big fan of Routledge. With the academic aspect, however, I really do like to pick up academic books if it's not books on genre or there's a book on fantasy writing, which I cannot seem to remember the name of, that I absolutely love, and I devour that book as often as I can. It's just good to understand how genre works from an academic point of view, because then it means that I can then take those sort of meanings, understandings, examples, definitions, and apply them to my own work as and when I see fit, or as long as they do fit certain elements, depending on what genre I'm writing. So it just kind of covers the academic aspect and understanding of what genre is just in general. And then it breaks down certain genres and what makes them so important and how easy it is to pull apart certain genre, like sort of like generic tropes and traits and things. So it's a very academic book, but it's something that I absolutely love and I've read it more than once. So yeah, genre. The next book is a collection of essays, and this was recommended to me by a really good friend of mine. I didn't know a great deal about Anne Lammot at the time, but now I'm a little obsessed with her and her work. She's actually a really cool individual, and this is the first book and only book that I've ever read by her so far, but I've read her articles and things online, and I think she's just an immensely impressive and intelligent and really funny and incredibly wise writer. She's just a really cool person. This book is called Bird by Bird, and in here it kind of goes over across certain essays and stories that she tries to pull from memory. Stories and of experiences where she's dealing with writing students as the teacher, tips and advice for writing, believing in your own work, just doing the work, learning to say yes to things. She's just an all-round amazing writer, and honestly, I really like this book, but I do intend to read more of her books in the future, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll see. Watch the space. We'll see. The next book, or rather two books, I heard that there is another one coming out, have been written by Sacha Black. So this one is 10 Steps to Hero. This one is 13 Steps to Evil. So this is about how to write and sort of frame the best sort of hero for your story. And this one obviously is about the villain and how to make a villain that really makes a lasting impression in your works. Sacha Black herself is also, I think she's an academic, but she's also a writer. We follow each other on Instagram. She's absolutely amazing. She's very approachable. She's someone that you can easily talk to for advice or anything to do with writing. She's basically there. She's absolutely fantastic. But she's really broken down those particular elements and like put a lot of focus on the idea of the villain and the idea of the hero. The books are really incredibly easy to understand. Again, very approachable, very friendly, but there is a little bit of academic understanding thrown in, but it's done in such a way that it's really tasteful and it makes you feel really sort of inspired and makes you feel really invigorated. So these are two books that I tend to go back to a good fair amount of times. I have issues myself with trying to define my villains from all of my stories. I can't seem to figure out how to write my villains properly or in an effective way or an effective manner. So this has actually been really, really helpful for me. As far as the hero's journey and stuff is concerned, I'm okay with that one. I've read enough fantasy stories to be okay with the idea of the ideal hero and various routes that the hero can take, but it's mostly just for the villain work. That's why I ended up getting these particular books. So that's these two. The very last book is one that I have gone back to so many times. I highly recommend it to people. One of the writers who I'm working with as a critique partner, I've been working with her and trying to encourage her to draw up a story grid for all of the stories that she's currently writing. That way she can sort of figure out where there's any plot holes or any issues with the narrative or the plot. It will just kind of make her whole story kind of jump out at her, and she'll realise if there's any mistakes or anything that she might need to improve on, or if things are going really, really well, and what she can do to perhaps space them out and work on the middle build, you name it. This book goes through everything. This is the story grid by Shawn Coyne. He is an editor of like 30 plus years. There is also a podcast that's under the same name with the same kind of cover. Just imagine it with a square shape. But this book is fantastic. I cannot highly recommend it enough. I don't know, I love this book. I just love it. I love it so much. But like I said, he goes over things like story grids, how to break up a story, how to work on your middle build, how to very sort of like touches on it, but he also then goes into working out how you can then start working on the sequel as you're still writing the first book. You shouldn't wait. How you can edit, how you can be an effective editor, you name it. He covers everything in this massively underrated book. I wonder if I can show you an example of a story grid. One thing that he tends to do, which I find really fantastic, with some of the examples on story grids, he will get you, as well as the host of the podcast, to find a movie and sit and basically draw up a story grid for that film. So you separate the movie by genre, you separate the movie from acts and scenes, and then you work through each of the scenes to see how well that movie is going to actually flow. Then you'll be able to start recognizing when the inciting incident happens, when another inciting incident happens, where there's a plot twist, where there's a climax. You know, you can then spot the main theme of the film and then the underlying one. If you can sort of spot those particular areas in a movie, you should be able to then apply those to your own written works and your own stories. And that's what helps make a much more interesting story for your readers. So there's like a little bit on genre. I don't know how well you can see that. Can you see that? He's split it up into reality style, structure, and content that goes through like the genres, the performance, that kind of stuff. And then there is the story grid, which I'm trying to find, and I cannot seem to find one. He's got a bunch in here, which I cannot seem to find. I can't seem to find one. Oh my gosh. Well, I'll show you a quick timeline. There's one here. This is like to do with like the idea of the beginning hook. This is just a timeline of events. So by scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, scene 4, scene 5, and all the things that you expect to be happening on either side of that line, so the main arc and then the other story. So there's that. So he breaks everything up. So ideally, in a weird way, your story should have like its main story and then the underlining story that runs along sort of alongside it. So I don't know, it's just a fantastic book. I love it. I highly recommend it. But you should be able to get all of these books on Amazon. I won't put any links down below, but check back in a little while. I might have, I don't know. But yeah, they're fantastic. These are all books that I like. I do have way more books, both academic and not. But I am someone who's teaching myself, because even though I studied English literature, I only learned how to write academic essays and how to be creative with research and stuff. There wasn't really any element on writing your own fiction or writing your own poetry or anything like that. So I'm having to teach myself from scratch. And on top of just writing, I'm also trying to teach myself about the world of editing, which is massively interesting to me. Although I probably will just pay an editor to do my stuff for me. But for the most part, it's just a very interesting thing. So I'm teaching myself. So yeah, I don't have the most popular books on demand, like Save the Cat or anything else like that at the moment. But I would like to get those books in future, but I just need to get through the other ones first. And then we'll see where we'll go from now. But yeah. Those are the books that I have for now in 2020. We'll see what I have next year. But if you have any books that you would like to recommend to me, let me know, put them down in the comment section or tweet me or send them to me over on Instagram, and I will get around to getting those particular books. So yeah, I think that's everything. I think that's everything that I wanted to say. Yeah. Oh, just check out my podcast. Links down below.